for joining us today. We'll be having a conversation on underage drinking. My name is Maylot, and I'm the program manager for IDEPI, and I would like to introduce you guys to the panel.
Welcome, guys. My name is Tyrus Rito, and I am a program director for Out of the Box, which is a nonprofit organization that focuses on mentoring the youth and community networking.
It's Tony Benjamin, and I'm director at Futurepreneurs Unlimited, which is a nonprofit organization that focuses on developing entrepreneurial thinking and abilities in youth.
Justin, I'm an executive director at Out of the Box. Thank you for having me.
Thank you all for introducing yourselves. So I will display the survey that we conducted with over 68 people who were between the ages of 14 to 20. And I will also be asking the panel a series of questions we felt that were relevant towards the survey and towards underage drinking. So I'll go ahead and ask the first question. The first question is, 64% of underage youth surveyed have taken a drink of alcohol in their lifetime. Are you guys surprised by this? What is your take on this? So 64% of underage youth surveyed have taken a drink of alcohol in their lifetime.
Yeah, this is Tara speaking. I would say that it's not a surprise. I think it's well known that there's a lot of underage drinking that occurs. I think this is just a confirmation of what we already knew before.
Yeah, I agree. That's true. It's not. I don't think it's such more of a surprise, but just more of a stating the facts that are there already.
So when conducting the survey, we asked a series of questions like, what is your age? And about 69% are between the ages of 18 to 20, and 22% were in between 15 and 17, and then 14 and below is about 8%. What is your gender? It's mostly 50-50. What is your race? 69% were Black or African Americans, and the second other biggest population was Asian Americans, and we have some mixed race and Hispanic or Latino in there as well. So what schools do you currently attend? So the schools that were the most popular were Federal Way High School, and then a lot of students were also not enrolled. And then we have some university students from Tacoma or University of Washington, and as well as Wazoo. Have you ever had alcoholic beverages like beer, wine coolers, or alcohol? So this was a question where we asked if any of these people drank alcohol before, and 64% of them said yes. How old were you the first time you drank? A lot of people were in the ages of 16 to 14, which seems like it was pretty popular ages. How often do you drink? A majority of people said at least twice a month. That was actually never drink. And then to about 20% said less than once a month, and then 13% at least once a month, and at least once a week for about 13 people, which is roughly 9 people. Have you ever been encouraged by a peer to drink? And 61% of people said yes, they have been encouraged to drink by a peer. Do people around you above the age of 21 and consume alcohol while you're around? So 82.4% of people said yes, of youth said yes. Do parents or other legal drinkers leave alcohol beverages in your presence? So it was 54% said no, and then 45% said yes. Do you think most people drink your age do so? And the most popular answer was they do. They want to have a good time at a party. The second most popular answer is like they're sad or depressed and want to feel better about themselves. And then another popular answer was they want to fit in and be accepted by peers, as well as they are just bored. And about 11 people said they didn't know why. And we asked who is responsible for contributing to the problem alcohol use by youth under age 21. A lot of people said the youth themselves. The second biggest answer was alcohol outlets such as liquor stores, bars, and restaurants. After that, it was parents, and then public agencies, and advertising. And others said they just didn't know. if you do drink, where do you drink? A lot of people say they drink at parties, or they don't drink, or they drink at home. And public areas were the top answers. And we just asked a couple people, or we asked everyone, if they had anything else they wanted to know about their alcohol consumption. And someone said alcohol consumption at an early age is not the problem. It's not educating youth on alcohol safety. There's no one singular culprit responsible for the influence of alcohol using young people, but the way our society glorifies it in the media, through movies, social media, and more. Um, Another answer was most youth don't know that they have an alcohol problem. And someone else also said how to prevent youth to seek for help. So I think they're saying what are ways that youth can find help if they do have an alcohol problem. And someone said safety first. So yeah, these are the answers from the survey. So back to the question, do you guys find it surprising that about 64% of them have said that they have drank alcohol before? So some of you guys said that you guys were not surprised.
Definitely not surprised. It's probably consistent with the percentage of underage drinkers for quite some time, because we're so influenced and impacted by our what is advertised to us, and alcohol and other substances are heavily advertised throughout all mediums, as well as by example. So I'm not surprised at all.
I'm not necessarily surprised either. In school, even when you're just like walking around, when you're in the bathroom, the library, there's always a group somewhere talking about substance usage, and they're always talking about it like it's something really fun and it's really cool. So usually it doesn't really surprise me.
We can move on to the next question. It seems that close to half of the youth surveyed drink alcohol at least once a month. Are there factors to be considered?
Yeah, I would say just like a lot of the youth reported that a lot of them are drinking at parties. And so I would assume that that once a month is when they're attending some of these occasions and parties. So I think a lot of them aren't necessarily drinking every day at home or anywhere else. I think it's when they attend these parties that they are consuming a lot of the alcohol.
It probably also dovetails with peer influence, because when they're at the parties, if everybody else is indulging, well, they will indulge too. So I think those two questions kind of dovetail.
And that was a good mix here as well. I mean, there is a good percentage that reported they drink once a week. That's a group that I'm interested in. I think 13% are saying they're drinking at least once a week, which I think is a little often. It's quite frequent.
We can go to the next question. Among the youth surveyed, 45% reported that their parents or guardians leave alcoholic beverages in their presence, and 82% of individuals 21 or above are drinking alcohol in their presence. What is your take on this?
Yeah, that question really made me do a lot of self-examination. I'm just being honest with you as a parent, because I don't drink very much, and I certainly don't drink to the point of my faculties being altered at all. I guess it would be defined as social drinking, and probably a lot of the respondents would consider what they do is just social. But what it made me think about was during the social events that I have, especially at my home, that I have alcohol present quite frequently, beer, wine, or other. And it made me do some real self-examination on whether I'm a bad influencer by even having it present at my home. And I had a discussion about that with my wife. So hopefully it'll cause me to adjust, because I don't want fun to be associated with alcohol, in a social setting. That, oh, okay, so we're getting together, the family's getting together today, so let's make sure we have some beer and wine, and that's going to enhance our fun. No, we don't need that to enhance our fun. So that's and that's in my instance, this survey, I think, had a positive impact on how I'm thinking.
That's good to hear. Like another question that I can follow up for this is how big of an influence do you guys think that, alcohol being in the presence of like underage people has on them actually pursuing drinking? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I would say it's a big influence, because you want to fit in. That's another result that we got, is a lot of them are drinking because they want to fit in. And so if you're in a social setting where the majority of people are drinking, then of course you're sort of drawn to that activity. And so
what if it was like at your parents' or your cousin's house or something like that? Those still influence, even if it's like someone that you're close to.
Yeah, I think even more, because those are people who are these are your loved ones, right? And so you're more comfortable doing things around them. And so if they're drinking, you're like, well, I might as well too, And so I think parents and peers, those are the most influential people in the youth's life. And so if they're drinking in their presence, and if they're constantly leaving beverages in their presence, alcoholic beverages in their presence, then it shouldn't be a surprise that the youth are drinking.
A lot of the people in the survey also said that they drink because they're bored.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're at like your parents' house and there's no one supervising you, and they just, kind of left their alcohol out and it wasn't locked up or anything, I feel like a lot of like youth would resort to drinking just to have something to do.
Anything else you guys want to add to that question?
Yeah, so I think it all ties in, with the boredom. I think most youth are bored just in general. And so when it comes to like maybe a weekend social gathering, I think already, since there's so much advertisement, as we've said before, like I think that makes people want to drink more. Then on top of that, if you have your friends wanting to have you drink as well, so you have the advertisement, you being bored, and then your friends telling you, so you're more inclined to want to take that beverage than just someone who didn't see any of that at all.
Yeah, I'd also say that the 82% of, is it 21 and above, drinking in their presence? Is that the question there? A lot?
Yeah.
I would say a big portion of that is really, you gotta think about this. In order for the youth to get alcohol, they have to have someone who's 21 or older buying the alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that a lot of these people who are drinking in their presence who are above 21 are those who are buying or supplying this alcohol to the youth.
We can move on to the next question. Among the youth surveyed, 75% are drinking primarily because they want to have a good time, 58% because they're depressed and want to feel better about themselves. What is your take on this? What are some of the ways our communities can help to mitigate this issue of depression and connection to underage drinking?
Yeah, 75% of the response because they want to have a good time. That's because they're at a party, right? So they're going to have a good time. And so alcohol, in their words, enhances the fun. And so I think that's where that result comes from. And the question regarding depression, I think this is where it's critical, where you have a lot of youth aren't necessarily drinking because it's fun, but they're drinking to suppress certain emotions or whatever they're experiencing at that time. And I think that's where it's really concerning. And I think as a community, we have to not only address the alcohol portion of it, but of course the mental health side of it. And so, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that the sadness and depression part is really interesting because you can probably guess that they probably have that type of influence from like either media or like they know someone that does that for that reason. So I think that we're also just like probably as society as a whole are not giving better alternatives to like mental health issues. And I think that, by providing better options to those things, then we would probably have, and I think that more of a danger could come out of drinking while you're sad or depressed than maybe drinking because you've seen your parents drink before. So I think that it's pretty kind of scary that 58% can said that.
It would be good to like spread around alternative coping methods. Sorry, for the depression part.
Mhm.
If the youth are feeling depressed or like there is nothing else to do, I think it would be nice to find a way to show them that drinking or substance abuse is not the only way you can cope with this, because there are, as much as like bad coping mechanisms are out there, there's a lot more that are good and much more healthier for you and help you in the long term.
So I guess I can just ask the follow-up question again. So what are some ways our communities can help to meditate this issue of depression and connection to underage drinking? So like how can we as like organizations kind of like help people find better solutions to these things? And what would that look like?
I think it's first normalizing mental health, just like what Faith is saying, just making that not a taboo, because I think mental health or mental health issues have been a taboo in our communities, especially Black and minority communities. I think just openly talking about it and talking about how that can lead to things like these. Now, not only are you depressed, but now you are reliant on a substance to suppress those um, feelings or emotions. And so I think it's just normalizing. That's a first step. Parents have to normalize it, or schools have to normalize it. Our own friends and families have to normalize it and just be able to have those conversations with the youth. Like, hey, what is depression? What does that look like? And what does that lead to eventually? Because I think it's a big elephant in the room that no one's talking about, essentially.
Mhm. I think it's also pretty interesting how like these people were able to like identify, like really well why they were drinking, and
Mhm.
like to say like, oh, I'm drinking could be because I am depressed and sad, because a lot of times like you can see people doing that thing and they have no idea that they're like depressed and or sad. So I think having this little bit of awareness is actually something that they can really use to kind of like pivot away from doing it, right? Because the realization is like the first part, but like definitely agree with you guys. I think there needs to be better alternatives to kind of, and it's like also just speaks to like lack of resources everywhere, right? Maybe if they had better counselors or access to like therapists or something like that, maybe this wouldn't be such of an issue. And kind of seeing a lot of these people are kind of like in high school and things like that, or in college, I feel like it's not too late to kind of intervene and help.
You could like try like small events where the youth bring their parents, and and people like kind of open up about their mental health and stuff. Like they're shown videos
Mhm.
or a speaker that comes in and like is telling you it's okay to talk about, mental illnesses and mental issues. I feel like that would be a good way to like open up the floor for specifically parents and children to talk,
Mhm.
and I feel like it would help out.
I agree with Faith. I think parents first, like, is this a conversation that you're having with your kids? Is it something
Mhm.
you guys are talking about at the dinner table?
Yeah.
Are you checking in on your kid? And so I think, to Faith's points, it starts at home. And so if our parents aren't doing it, then we can't expect our schools to take the weight, and their friends, they're dealing with the same issues. So I think, again, I don't want to put the full blame on parenting, but I think it does start at home, because these kids are minors. And so legally they are under your care. And so
Mhm.
I think there is a huge responsibility on the parents to really talk about these things with their kids.
I don't know if I'm the only one here that's a parent, but I'm 100% in agreement
Mhm.
with your comments that it starts with the parent. It's the parent's responsibility first, which is why I was saying that I had to examine my own habits and the environment that I'm creating. When because the schools, you know, there might be what 500 kids to each counselor,
Yeah,
so we definitely can't count on the counselors.
no,
Very pleased to learn of your mentoring, but in our mentoring operations, we we don't we don't get that 8 hours a day even with the kids. We might get once a week with the kids. So it has to start at home. I'm 100% in agreement.
I can move on to the next question. 80% of youth surveyed blame themselves or other youth for underage drinking. Are you surprised by this, and what is your take on this?
I was surprised by this. And I don't know if the blaming is on themselves or if they're blaming other youth,
Mm-hmm.
or it's misplaced blame.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe kind of like what you said, maybe they just don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And so I was surprised by this. And I think this is I think this is a conversation for another day. I feel like we could
Yeah.
2 hours just talking about that because that's really surprising. That's 80% blame themselves or other youth.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's really interesting.
I
Yeah.
think going back to what I was saying, a lot of these youth are bored, and with them being bored, they're seeing the advertisement, and then they get into something that's easier to get in than it is to get out.
Mhm.
And so, with that being said, with them being stuck like that, I think if you put yourself in that position, since it is your decision to consume at the end of the day, I think you would blame yourself because you're like, well, I saw the advertisement, dang, they got me there. Oh, my friends told me, dang, they got me there. And so at the end of the day, once all is said and done, once you made the decision, I think that's why they would blame themselves for making that decision.
I think some youth have like a sort of mentality that's like, I put myself here specifically to like bad things like substance abuse. Um, so it's like, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So I think the youth recognizing that they have an issue is actually like amazing, that they know that this is something that's not good. And I think the survey should have included a question that was like, if you think you have a problem, are you ready for recovery? Or
Mm.
is recovery something that you want to look at in the future? Or are you okay with where you're at right now? I think that would give us a lot of insight on it.
I think it's pretty interesting that a lot of them, like Tyrus, you were saying that were youth, they kind of like understand that like they are the ones that are influencing each other. But I think that, it's always like the bigger picture. Like if a peer is like influencing you, it's because they're getting influenced, and it's most likely like media or their parents or whatever. It could be whatever reason. So I think overall, it's like pretty interesting how many layers there are to this in terms of like who is responsible. And I thought the answer about like 18 or 26% of them said that, which is the next percentage, was it was like liquor stores and stuff, which I found interesting because I'm like, are they going to the liquor store or they're just seeing liquor stores? I don't know. I feel like maybe this question could have been more specific, but like, are they just seeing it and they're tempted and even though they're underage, I don't know, but like, it's pretty interesting. That was the second answer.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, that's an interesting point there. Maybe for them, they feel like, well, if alcohol wasn't as easily accessible, I wouldn't, And so
Yeah.
maybe it just goes to the point that our society, at some point, glorifies alcohol to the point where I think grocery stores now, at least here in Washington, grocery stores now, you could buy alcohol, where I think
Yeah.
some years ago you'd have to go to a liquor store to
Mhm.
buy it. So maybe that whole of like, well, if it's available, I'm gonna,
Mhm.
consume it.
We have some other questions, and it says about 20 out of the 68 respondents are currently not enrolled into school. Are you surprised by this, and what are some of the reasons or factors to be considered? So I found this pretty interesting. But of course we can't see kind of like who is the one that answered. So maybe if they are drinking, they're not enrolled. We can't really make that kind of comparison. But I thought it was pretty interesting that a huge range of people in this age group were not enrolled into school.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting because for me personally, when I started hearing about like substances and substance abuse is when I was in school. When I'm
Mm-hmm.
everywhere else, I don't really hear about it as much. So I was kind of like surprised that a lot of people weren't enrolled. 'Cause I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
where else would you hear that? Like where else would you hear that kind of discussion and stuff? Maybe through friends or something.
Yeah. Or like where would you like hear like there's a party or something that you can go drink? Okay. Yeah.
And I would think that when you are consuming alcohol, I think that would affect your academics at the end of the day. Whether you're not enrolled or whether you are enrolled, I think for the people who aren't enrolled, it's taking a toll to the point that maybe you can't be in school. Or in those who are enrolled, maybe I would want to look at academic success, seeing how grades are and seeing how attendance is and all that kind of stuff. Because I think it does have to take a toll on it.
Yeah. I think, yeah, and like for like in more surveys, I think we can be like way more detailed and understanding like kind of like, oh, if you are this age and you're not enrolled, what is your relationship with alcohol or vice versa?
Yeah, I would say maybe another factor here are those, because I'm trying to think back. I'm thinking maybe a good portion of those who are 18 and 20, so meaning they've graduated high school and quote unquote should have gone to college and maybe just chose not to. Maybe
Yeah.
workforce. So I would say maybe that's probably another factor is you have those people who are kind of in the middle of
In that gap, yeah, that's what I assumed, that maybe a lot of those people were in that situation that were not
to
enrolled.
Justin's point, maybe they're not in school or and so maybe they're just kind of they have a lot of time on their hands and so a lot when they
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's kind of hard to really look at that without having to ask more specific questions in relation to alcohol and their lack of them not being enrolled in school.
Yeah. And I think one question that we didn't ask in the survey, or I feel like is like not really highlighted anywhere, and I feel like for the reasons why they want like the alcohol industry to exist is like the health aspects of alcohol. Like it's like super, super bad for you. And like nobody really knows that because like you are just seeing so many videos and movies and everyone does it. And like it's really like highlighted or encouraged in our society, like when you are at work you have happy hours or things like that. So it's really, really interesting that even when I made this survey I didn't even think about like asking the question of like health concerns, but because it's not something that we're ever told to think about, but it's like extremely like really unhealthy for you. It's really damaging to your body and it does nothing good for your body. Like there's no benefits of it, right? So I always think that it's really interesting that we always forget that aspect. And I think that's still something really important that we can highlight to people, because even if you're really young and you're still doing it, that's still going to have some sort of effect on your body. So yeah. Or like what it does to your body actually. And it's like I couldn't even get into details about it because I really don't know that much about it, but it's like we're not really supposed to know that much about it. Like they don't want us to kind of like understand the realities of like what alcohol is really doing to your body, but it has zero benefits, so it's like you're consuming something that's actually just harming you. And the fact that like you wake up the next day and you're super hungover, you're just like you don't really think about that, like what just happened in that time period.
I mean, in that last part of hungovers, we've sort of like normalized that, right? It's just a part of the process, right? But you don't really think about you're hungover because it's your body telling you whatever you consume,
like
like so I think we haven't really, I guess, understood alcohol and how and what it does to our bodies, and it's not good. I mean, it's a poison, literally.
Yeah.
And so it just goes back to our society. We glorify alcohol, we make it seem like it's the cool thing, it's whatever, but and then we normalize hangovers, and it's just it's a societal.
Yeah. Do you guys have any questions that came up while we reviewed the survey or during this whole conversation?